Welcome back, friends, to another episode of the Zephcast, the show where we get to know your favorite content creators, streamers, and podcasters alike. I am your host, ZephyrsXP, and with me today, we got Twitch streamer, Philosopher, and my badass of a friend. I'm talking about the legendary CranberryPudding. Thank you so much for being here today, dude. How's your day going, man?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Dude, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come hang out here, converse with you. I've wanted to talk with you like this for a very long time, and I'm really excited now we have the chance to chat about deep questions, Twitch questions, philosophical questions, just anything that kind of comes up. So usually like to start it off with an icebreaker question. So you think you're all ready, dude?
Break my ice.
Break my, all right. I will break your ice as hard as I can. Okay. So usually with icebreakers, I usually do like a random generator, so it's like random and fun each time. The one I got today was, if you had to delete all but 3 apps from your phone, which ones would you keep and why?
Okay, so these are like just to establish some ground rules. We're not talking about, because I've seen these videos on YouTube and people start talking about like, oh, like my camera app, like that doesn't count, right? We're talking about like downloaded apps.
Sure, yeah, like the ones you go on the App Store and download specifically.
Yeah. See, this is gonna be boring because I don't really use my phone. So I guess I use the phone, but I try to keep it like exclusively to telephone calls and text messages. So
Sure,
I guess
sure.
I would say the Messenger app, because I have a few people that for some reason will only communicate that way. Probably
Facebook
the
friends.
Discord app, with streaming and all that.
Yeah.
And I use the Netflix app sometimes on the toilet. Now you know that about me.
Now you know that about CranberryPudding. Yeah, that was a tough one because like so many, I guess it just depends how much you use your phone, because some people like live and breathe and die on their phone, and other people just like, I think it's a good idea to try to distance yourself a little bit from it. It's an addictive little thing.
It never caught me, like I just never had I always saw it as something that was too small, and coming from a guy who grew up having to play the Game Boy while his brother played the Super Nintendo, it's like, I don't want small. I want the TV,
big
right?
screen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I feel that way sometimes with like Netflix or YouTube. Like, I guess I can kind of watch it a little bit on my phone, but I usually like to watch it on TV. It's just more, I don't know. Do you almost kind of feel like when you're on your phone or at your computer or on your couch watching TV, there's like specific apps or specific things that are programmed in your head? Like, I want to watch this on TV, but I'm going to do this on my computer.
Yeah, I mean, now especially, I don't know about you, but for me, it's just Twitch over here on my second monitor, and then like I'm grinding in Final Fantasy 14 or something, and somebody's playing in the background. And now that's how I watch Netflix too, and it's really bizarre. I have some thoughts about that sometimes. It's like, what is it about being so crowded with stimulus that makes us feel so relaxed? It's a weird thing.
It is a weird thing. Yeah, I feel that so much with Twitch. I usually have Twitch on like my iPad right below in front of me, and it's like always watching somebody stream, and sometimes you try really hard to focus on one thing like work wise, but it's so easy to get distracted.
Absolutely.
Recently I just started playing Doom Eternal on stream like a month ago, and right when I started playing that, I just got like triple monitors as well, and so it was just like an overload of stimulus everywhere. Because like the game, have you played Doom or Doom Eternal?
Well, yeah, I played through Doom 2016, and then I played like 25% of Doom Eternal, and I hate to say it didn't catch me.
Yeah, it's so fast paced and intense and in your face everywhere. So it was just like my brain was it was not having any of it. There was so much going on.
And the music, right? The music in those games
so intense.
It's so like it's coming from everywhere, and it's loud, and it's wild. It's a wild ride.
There is definitely such a thing as too much stimulus, like brain wise. I feel that.
Absolutely.
So kind of stemming off the icebreaker question, the first real question of the podcast: who is CranberryPudding the streamer and the person behind the streamer?
That's a good question. I don't even know whether I know. I think streaming in some ways has been a part of a journey to figure that out, because I think over my life I've been many things, and I know that easily changes. So who am I? I don't know. The guy in front of you, the guy that you see on the monitor. For now, that's who I am. But really, there's not a whole lot to me that I don't show on the camera either. I really love the games that I play. I play music sometimes. I'm interested in social issues, politics, philosophy. I really just put it all out there, kind of unafraid. Whatever happens kind of thing.
I respect that so much, and I feel like a lot of people don't do that and don't open themselves as honestly as maybe they would like to. Maybe some people are comfortable having that filter and, you know, not going balls to the wall crazy, being honest, but like it's so refreshing when you hear somebody just speak their honest, blunt truth, whether people agree with it or disagree with it, or it offends or doesn't offend. Like there's just something so like honest about being honest, so good about being honest, you know.
It feels good, but it can be a double-edged sword because, you know, especially on stream, if you're talking, you know, you're letting your thoughts out. And when you're not talking and letting your thoughts out and you're by yourself, you can formulate these thoughts. You can stew on them. You can sleep on them. So whereas when you're having a personal dialogue, you can allow yourself time to change your mind. If you said something one time on stream, that one person's going to remember that one time you said that one thing. And even if you've evolved in your views slightly since then, so it's a double-edged sword.
That's one thing that really frustrates me about nowadays with people. I don't know if it's just social media or the culture or whatever, but people are so unforgiving of people making mistakes or saying things from the past. And you can say something, you know, something really negative or whatever 10 years ago, and people still bring it up today. And it's, do you ever think or feel worried about the whole cancel culture kind of philosophy, anything like that?
I think that if you watch it sort of progress, I think it's already peaked. I think what we will do about it, because look, in my country, in Canada, our prime minister dressed in blackface 3 times. The most recent one was like 13 years ago, like not that long ago, you know? So eventually we're all going to realize that if we're going to do this to one person, we're going to do this to everybody. We all have a dark past at some point. We all did something, searched something, said something that somebody sometime in the future will find offensive. So I think it just has to be this wave of what we're doing right now, and then everybody will realize it's ridiculous. So the answer is no. I'm not worried about it at all. I'd be more worried about lying about something to save my skin. That would make me feel worse, I think.
That's a very honest way of looking at it. I feel like I think a lot of people are still scared of getting canceled or just saying whatever's on their mind, being honest about it and offending somebody. But I agree, like there's going to be somebody everywhere that's going to be offended by everything. So I think if you just have such a tight filter on yourself, it can get in the way of who you are as a person, you know?
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, for sure.
Kind of on that as well, what originally got you interested in wanting to start streaming on Twitch?
Well, you know, I think that originally I thought that I was pretty good at Street Fighter V.
Hey.
And, you know, it turns out I got on Twitch and started to realize I'm very, very much mediocre in the group of people that want to do it, which has been such a good thing because... Well, yeah, because then you start to play with the big dogs. You start to get bit by the big dogs. So it's kind of a cool thing. You know, I guess it was an attempt at reaching out to people that I thought I could learn from. So maybe that was why I started streaming. And then something hit me to just play Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
It all kind of barreled from there. That's where I met you, and that's where I met Porto, and that's where it all kind of cracked open. And then it's kind of just, it's out of control since then. So I have no idea where it's been going since then. But yeah, I think it actually started just from wanting to be more involved in the Street Fighter community.
Dude, that's super cool. Like a lot of people I've talked to streamer wise who started on Twitch, a a lot of people actually, similar story, like they really enjoyed a game or a series and wanted to just play it live and, you know, maybe play with some people who are better than them, or even just like meet people in the community and form relationships and friendships. So it's really cool how there's, you know, for you it's Street Fighter. For myself, it was definitely Final Fantasy. I was really excited for Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and that was the game where I was like, I wanted to record my reaction to it, but I'm like, why not stream it as well? Like, what's the harm in it? And then, yeah, I think you and Porto and Cage Shinigami, you know Cage as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think the three of you are like my longest like friends that I've met on Twitch. Like literally top or like oldest 10 or whatever. So it's really cool. It's really cool like where you start on Twitch and kind of seeing the progression from it and seeing people who started a similar time and maybe just fell off for whatever reason, decided to stop streaming, which is totally fine. Like life happens, millions of things happen, but it's like it's cool to still see you and Porto, you know, kicking ass and streaming it. It's really awesome, honestly.
I call it the old neighborhood. It's like you know, where the people first set up their shops around your shop or whatever,
right?
And now you go visit other shops, but it's the old neighborhood, you know, like
the old neighborhood. I love that.
Yeah, that's how I always envision that.
I listened to your podcast with both of the episodes with Porto. One of the things that really stuck to me was when you said we were talking about like favorite games last year, and you mentioned CyberPunk. But I know you talked about Final Fantasy 7 Remake having like an extra strong hold on you, like the opening music, the crescendo and everything kind of starts getting tears in your eyes. What were your thoughts on Final Fantasy 7 Remake? Did you enjoy it when it came out?
It's kind of like bittersweet. You know, I've got something against this whole just rehash
remake
culture
everything
that we have. Yeah, everything's a remake of a movie. In our lifetime, there's been like 3 Spider-Mans already. You know, like how many old ideas do we need to bring back and just make it look more shiny? But Final Fantasy VII is such an endearing game that looks. The only reason we think it looks good is because we remember it looking good. It looks god awful.
It's like Legos.
It's worse than it's like worse than Roblox right now.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
It's bad. And there's such a deep story to tell. And now they're not afraid to make these changes, move in a separate direction, have the what were I forget what the ghost things were called.
The Whispers.
Yeah, the Whispers.
Yeah.
I liked it because I thought it was like, okay, you wanted a remake? Okay, this is a remake. You like shit you ain't seen before. Like yeah, so you know. I thought it was amazing, and it's got me so excited. The only thing I'm upset about, it's probably going to be a PS5 exclusive, the second part. Then that means I got to buy a PS5.
Yeah, I honestly like playing through it. I was actually telling my wife this yesterday, I think, because I've been playing it on my off time, like hard mode, just for fun, and playing through it, it felt like it was made for the PlayStation 5, honestly. Like it felt like it was a PS5 game with all the graphics and fidelity and everything they wanted to do. And maybe it was the investors, or maybe it was the time frame it was coming out, like we have to release it now, and they kind of like had a scaled back graphic version of it for the PS4. So ever since I've been playing it, I'm like, I feel like this was a PS5 game that they made come out 6 months early, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a company, Square Enix, that's worked with Sony for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Since Final Fantasy VII. So they have loyalty, and I think Sony is doing everything they can right now with the way that Xbox positions itself in the market as the family system. It's the one that makes the most sense in the family unit household. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, Sony's got to try something, you know, with Microsoft buying Bethesda and all that stuff. So Sony, I think, is throwing money at Square Enix, being like, "Yo, give us those exclusives."
Right. Yeah. It's because it's not only that, it's also like God of War is a PlayStation exclusive, like Last of Us, Uncharted, like Horizon Zero. Well, Horizon Zero Dawn's been on the PC as well, so kind of.
But it started as
PlayStation. But yeah, in terms of Final Fantasy VII Remake, I'll probably say like spoiler territory right here for anybody that hasn't beaten it. did you have any opinions on like some of the ending aspects of it, how the whispers were incorporated, if it is really a remake or if it's like a sequel? Have you heard those theories?
Yeah, I mean, that game, and this is so cliche, I'm sure everybody says this, but I mean it. It means so much to me that, and I think they know that. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we think that they don't know how much we love the game.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're just going to.
They know we want this game to be good.
Yeah, it's not like Zach's going to join your party and then Aerith's not going to die and Red 13's going to turn human. Like, it's not going to be like that. All the same things are going to happen. I had this crazy theory. This is my crazy theory. The Whispers, okay? That's us.
Yeah, the fans.
That's us. That's the fans going, no, don't change it. We want it to be the same.
Right.
That's
don't kill Barrett at the end. Like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. So... I don't know.
I think Tetsuya Nomura's come out on record and said that, like, the Whispers are the fans trying to hold the original game intact, and they're wanting to not make it a 1-for-1 100% like perfect remake. They're wanting to essentially have this break the cycle of the game you've played a million times and take it in a new direction in the same world.
Did you say that?
Well, he talked about specifically the Whispers being like the fans to the ones trying to hold it back. But yeah, I mean, at least when I'm playing through it again, I'm like, this just feels like it's almost like when you start a new game plus or play the game over again and again and again. It's the same game in the same world with the same story beats and everything. So what if it's just like this eternal reincarnation, like in the video game world itself, and Sephiroth somehow has figured out a meta of like breaking past it, and he's trying to diverge this new game plus into a version of the game where he actually wins. It's very meta, it's very broken out of there, but I don't know.
There's a lot of questions about Final Fantasy, all of the games, right? Because there's a lot of evidence to say, okay, well, this Final Fantasy world lives in this Final Fantasy world, and this one is in this one, and they all share a lot of these things. So, and in this game, there's a lot of sort of time bending. So if it exists in the same universe, how could they not? They could do the same thing in 7. You know, there's a lot of Final Fantasy takes a lot of liberties, and why wouldn't they? It's modern painting, right?
I've always been under the impression that Final Fantasy is like the name of the world, and all of these stories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all of them are just like different chunks of time throughout this world's history, whether it's 10,000 years in the past, 100,000 years in the future, 20 years in the future, like whatever the Final Fantasy game is. It's I've always felt like that's why the Chocobos are in every game, the Moogles are in every game, Ifrit and Shiva and Bahamut and all of them, they're all in this game together. But it's like all the characters and story beats, and maybe it's gone a long enough time where the continents kind of shift, and maybe that's going in a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. But yeah, I've always thought like just the world itself was Final Fantasy.
Well, that's what Final Fantasy 14 does. That's what it makes, right? And it just does that, and then the company goes, and it's canon. So yeah. Here it is.
You just finished Final Fantasy 14. Not like finish, but like you beat the main story game, right?
Yeah, well, I've kept up to date with it now. I've got myself up to the latest patch, and then in November comes the new expansion.
What are your thoughts on the entire encompassment? I don't know if that's the word, but like the entirety of Final Fantasy 14. Does it live up to the never-ending hype that everybody always preaches about?
Yeah, it's a never-ending Final Fantasy game, and it's yours to explore and do your way and be the Final Fantasy type character that you want to be. And it's not just like an MMO where it's like, okay, map your buttons to these 3 keys and you just hit those and move out of the way. Like, there's rich story, and there are hard mechanics and interesting boss fights that really make you kind of like
work.
Oh, damn, this is hard. Like, this is actually really a real game, So yeah, no, it's, for me, probably my favorite Final Fantasy experience out there right now.
Wow, even better than, would you say 7 is your favorite, or maybe like second favorite in terms of this, or is like 8 up there, 9 up there, 10?
7, 6, and 9 have always had a special place in my heart. I mean, I grew up, one of my first NES games was Final Fantasy 1 when I was like 4.
Hell yeah.
So it's been in my life since day one. So they all have a special place in my heart. It's so hard to say which one's your favorite, right? I've played them all. They mean so much to me in so many different ways, even the ones I don't like.
Yeah, you can still find things about them. Like, I feel like as I've gotten older, I've really started to realize that more and more is there's no such thing as black or white. It's just all a mixture of gray. And sometimes, you know, like for me, Final Fantasy VIII as an example, I played it twice. It was good. There was some things I did really enjoy about it, but it wasn't compelling enough to make me want to go back and like replay it again. But there was a lot of great things about it I loved. Like the music in it was absolutely phenomenal. The way the graphics like intertwined with these CGI movies back in the time, even till today, is still pretty impressive to watch. But yeah, in terms of like story and characters and stuff, didn't really quite hit with my cup of tea. But that doesn't mean I hate it. It's just still a good game, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. And there's always something for everybody somewhere. It
Right.
just may not be everybody's go-to adventure that they want to go back to all the time, right? And that's kind of how it is.
Did you like Final Fantasy 13 at all?
Better. The last time that I played it, which was last year, was the best time I've ever had playing it.
Yeah.
Like I really just separated myself from any preconceived notions, and I just tried to like play the mini game, try to get the good battle scores, you know? Like I really leaned into what the game wanted me to do, and I ended up having a lot of fun with it. I don't know if I'm craving to play it again anytime soon, but I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah.
It's like that spectrum, right? Like might not be all the way on the edge, but maybe like more on the I enjoy it side.
I'd play it again for sure. You know,
Did you play the trilogy or just 13?
Just 13. I had no. The sequel games, get out of here.
Yeah. Like 10-2 and what, 12-2 or something?
Yeah, it's like Bambi 2 and like, you know, like that's
Aladdin
what I look
2 and yeah.
Yeah, they can't all be Toy Story 2. They can't all be Toy Story 3. You know,
Right.
so
I actually honestly really didn't enjoy, again, you know, Spectrum, don't love it or hate it, but like I really did enjoy Final Fantasy X-2's gameplay and battle system. It was pretty addicting. It was like the job system of Final Fantasy V. Everything else though, I mean, maybe could go without, but I really loved the battle system. It was very fun to play.
that's what everybody tells me. So I have yet to play it, but hey, maybe next April Fools.
Right, exactly. So kind of on that as well, I know we talked briefly about CyberPunk for 2 seconds as maybe your favorite game. I when I listened to the podcast with Porto, you had mentioned that it was either your favorite game or really high up there in favorites. 8 months since it's come out, or 8 or 9 months or however long, what are your thoughts still on it?
I haven't played it since I made that statement.
Yeah.
So look, I still think it's a great game. Why I haven't played it, I think it's a big commitment, and now
It's a big game.
It's a huge game. It's hard to stream, and like, man, if I want to stream for, I don't know, 6 hours, I don't want to stream that. But then when I'm done streaming, I don't want to like sit down for 5 more hours and
Right.
you know, work at CyberPunk. So
Do you think 14's kind of taken that like big game world experience over for you?
I think for now it's easy. It's it doesn't really make me search for a new feeling every day, like what's gonna motivate me and what are people gonna want to watch. This has motivated me again. I like the place. That's usually the best formula, don't you find?
Right. It's all about the story and just whatever draws you into it.
Yeah.
The graphics of CyberPunk though, like when you run it with some like good hardware, ooh, it looks amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I had an amazing time playing it. I think the voice acting is incredible. I think the story is good. You know, I know not everybody loves Keanu Reeves. He's not everybody's cup of tea. He's a bit of a dramatic guy.
Yeah.
He's a bit of a Nick Cage type, you know? I'm going to deliver lines like this because that's how I'm intense.
Yes.
but like, if you drop him wanting him to be anything other than him, then it's amazing because it's like, okay, just give me that for 30 hours. I'm good.
Do you think there's going to be more? There's actually a game coming out with Vin Diesel. There was like a trailer I saw of it, and it's they're like taking their exact likeness and making video game characters out of these very famous actors. Like we saw it with Keanu Reeves. There's a new Vin Diesel one. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but when I saw the trailer, I'm like, dude, that's Vin Diesel. Like, holy crap. Do you think that's going to become more and more common over the years? They're going to take like famous celebrity actors, actresses, and transform them into video game versions of themselves?
I think they're going to try, but
sell their likeness.
Time will tell if that's what gamers really want. You know, Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reeves, so I don't think you can put Meryl Streep in a video game and get the same reaction.
Right.
Maybe no offense to Meryl Streep,
right?
But you know, it's just to say, that's a very specific kind of actor, and they've done it with other actors in the past. Martin Sheen in Mass Effect 2, that was epic back in the day. But you know, it's okay. It's something that they got to tread lightly with. The first time I see a Will Smith AAA like looter shooter game, it's like, count me out. I'm going the exact opposite of that opposite direction of that game. I think
almost makes you wonder like how much of the marketing team is involved in like, we want this game to be big, so let's take a very big celebrity actor and just kind of stuff them in there when they could have transformed their likeness into an original character. So
yeah, the thing is, movie stars, they sell things for 3 months. They don't sell things for 4 years, and you want your game to last for 4 years. Right. So I think it'll be a mistake if they do, but I bet you we do see a couple maybe a Tom Cruise game coming out, you know?
Mission Impossible or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of those like actor superhero, I don't know. Yeah, like the Vin Diesels and maybe like Dwayne Johnson, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I could see Will Smith in a video game. I don't know. That could be kind of dope.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're like,
it could be, but it's got to be like, you know, if it was like a really good looking, I remember watching you play the Spyro game. That game had the best graphics. If they had a game with those kind of graphics and it was like the Fresh Prince and it was like a platformer, that would be. I'd play that Will Smith game. Dude,
that would be awesome. Yeah, dude, Spyro's such a fun game. I love that Nintendo has that kind of philosophy with their games where they don't focus on, like, I love super realistic graphics like CyberPunk with the ray tracing and the shadows and the lights and the water reflections, and like I'm always blown away by that. But there's something so beautiful about Nintendo's simple, like Zelda Breath of the Wild or like Pokemon games that are so cartoony, but they're so beautiful in and of themselves.
They really have stayed true to the formula that first comes the game, then comes the looks, right?
Yes.
First comes the game. And I think it's funny, we're talking about that right after talking about like putting actors in your game. Right. I don't think you'll ever see Nintendo putting Chris Evans in Mario because first comes the game, right?
Yeah. I think it was the original director of Zelda. I can't remember. Miyamoto? I can't remember off the top of my head, but he said like,
Miyamoto, I think.
Yeah, he said specifically with like rushing games, like a good game like always takes time. Like a bad game will be bad forever, but a good game like with time will solidify. And they really do focus on that, because especially when you see games that like are in their library, they always focus on just making it so much fun and like putting that perfect amount of balance and like the gameplay and the fun of it versus, you know, graphics and show offy CGI trailers.
Yeah. Nintendo does a really good job at like when a Nintendo game isn't that good, it's just because it's not as good as like the last one that was just so good. You know what I mean? They never make a bad game. Everything they make is a good game, guaranteed. That's how they get away with selling the things for full price for its eternity.
Oh my goodness. Like my wife and I went to Target a few weeks ago, and no shit, they're still selling Mario Kart 7 for the original Wii for $40.
Yeah.
Like,
I know they never go down in price.
They never do. Or if they go down in price, they're like for the holidays for $5 off or $10 off something.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think there's a game out there that everybody seems to universally love that you just absolutely can't get into, anything like that?
There's not a game that comes to mind. Game of Thrones was that for me on TV.
Didn't get it?
Didn't get it. Never got it. I watched 3 seasons of it, and it was just a bit too much incest and just like, here's the things that everybody watches: wieners and boobs and incest. And it's like, that's cool, but like, I just picture George R.R. Martin, like, all short, writing his little horny novels, you know, like, this is gonna sell millions. It just didn't do it for me. So, like, but game though, I might have to come back to that because there's got to be one.
What's like a big, like, I know for me it'd probably be The Witcher 3. I've tried a couple times to get into Witcher 3, and I just like I keep hitting a brick wall like 10 hours in, where I'm just like, I don't know about this.
That's a good one, because that I feel the same about that.
Really?
I've tried to stream it twice.
Just fall face flat on it.
At about the 10-hour mark, yeah.
Interesting. I don't know what it is. I think it's just these huge, massive games. I have to go into them with, like, in my head, okay, you're gonna be playing this game for the next 3-4 months. Like, this is what you're playing. And if you go in, at least with me, I'm like, if I go into it thinking I'll play it for a couple days, I'm immediately gonna lose interest.
Yeah, and I think maybe the size and the scope of the game is something that I failed to understand the first 2 times I tried. So I think you're right.
Do you think there's such a thing as games that are just so big and large, they're almost shooting themselves in the foot a little bit with like these 100-hour magnum opus titles like Persona 5 or The Witcher 3 or Skyrim, where, like, I always think about The Last of Us, the first Last of Us. It's such a beautiful, tight, concise game that's like 20 hours or less, 15, 20 hours, but you just can always replay it over. At least for me, I can always like replay it over and over because it's so short and sweet, and there's so much stuff to do in it. Versus in, like Persona 5, that's a relationship right there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, I think that Skyrim is maybe a bad example there, because literally they've sold that on the last 3 consoles, right? And
probably the next 3 from here.
And, yeah, exactly. It'll just be installed on your next cell phone, when you get it.
Very true.
No. The answer is no. I think that the larger they make it, the stronger, solid community they can make around it, and it's those tiny communities that really make the game massive.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a game like Skyrim, you have all these modders out there that turn it into, like Iron Man versus giant dildos. And it's like, okay, that's my Skyrim experience now. I guess I'll play that, right? So people just keep coming back.
I want to play that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Thomas the Train one, right?
I don't think they're shooting themselves in the foot, but I think that sometimes the good creators, like I guess I'll say Bethesda, good creators in Bethesda, I know that won't go over well with some listeners. But some of the bigger name creators, they do these things well, but I do think there are some companies who they let the story slide a bit too much for their own good. They don't understand how important like a good narrative is, like you would find in The Last of Us, or like you might find in a Final Fantasy game. Yeah, but there's got to be a market for somebody that just wants the blank face superhero, right?
Right. That's true.
Some people just want to wake up in the morning and hear, "Hello, orc," drop me some wood.
Exactly. They just want to like live in a world. I feel like
for goodness sake, people play Animal Crossing, right?
Oh God, my wife's obsessed with it.
That is just living in a world.
It is. I mean, especially these MMOs, like WoW and Final Fantasy. That's the biggest reason I've been so hesitant with trying Final Fantasy 14 is because I really think if I touch it, it's just going to consume me, because I've always wanted to like live in a Final Fantasy world with chocobos and just go riding on chocobos all day. And I'm like, well, there it finally is. Do I really want to sever my life ties like that? Pretty much for it.
I mean, it's a commitment. I think people that are successful at playing MMOs and having a normal life don't play any other game.
Yeah, that's right? Their bread and butter.
Because you can go home and make a normal life out of after work, eating dinner and playing for 6 hours. You can make a totally normal life out of that.
Yeah.
Right? And you can get good at the game like that. So but you can't play 1 hour a night and then go do a stream and then go hang out with your buddies and then go spend time with your wife. Unfortunately, that's not that compatible with the MMO lifestyle.
Very true. Very true. It's just such a time commitment, a time sink. I had a boss a few years back, and he said like every night when he'd go home after work, he would play 4 or 5 hours of I think it was League of Legends. Like that was his just time sink. He just turned his computer on and just everything else just disappeared from his peripherals. So it's kind of really cool that games can do that now. It's kind of scary at the same time too.
Yeah, it's very scary. It's very scary. You know, I don't mean to get too conspiracy theory, but it's just kind of Genshin Impact was one of the big ones. League of Legends. These are all Chinese companies. We're constantly being told to, you know, the Huawei is bad. We arrested the Huawei girl, but buy more Chinese software, and you know, it's a weird time. It's a weird time. Give all your emails to these Chinese companies because the games are free.
Free stuff is definitely not free stuff, and people need to know that.
It costs your info and your time.
I think the scary thing is so many people know that free stuff isn't free stuff, and people just don't care now. There's a lot of people who just really genuinely don't care because all they want is free.
It's hard to see the consequences when you know in the early 1900s it was credit card, or it was mortgages for like entire farms. In the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, credit cards. In our generation, we're loaning out information.
Yeah,
like we're taking things to fill our time by giving them information. So eventually they're all going to have a profile on us and we won't be able to do anything.
I've actually had the conversation before with people about like companies say they don't access your, you know, because we've all been in that situation where we're thinking about a product or an item and we just go on Google or Facebook and just the ads are right in front of us. And maybe we're conversing with a friend about like, hey, I've kind of been thinking of buying a new guitar. And then you go on Facebook and all of a sudden you're getting guitar ads and you're like, what the F? Like, why?
And the one you wanted to.
Right.
No, actually, so I have a friend. I went to a friend's wedding back in October, and one of the guests there who was in the wedding party, he worked as a senior VP of marketing for a large Canadian chain that sells, it's kind of like, you know, those hardware stores that you might find in the smaller communities that sell like pool toys and hardware stuff and sort of, you know,
a little bit of everything.
Yeah. He kind of markets to that chain, or is the VP of marketing for that chain. Anyway, point of this story is he was telling me he buys information from the weather app, and that information from the weather app will say, okay, well, Cranberry Pudding was shopping at our store, and then his location changed from our store to Walmart, and then he spent more time at Walmart.
Interesting.
So then they're going to be like, oh, they didn't like the price of the lawnmower at our store. So he went and spent more time because there was maybe more selection. And then they take that information and figure out how to market better to you.
Oh, that's scary.
And that's really scary. And then, so I remember asking him, I was like, so what, like you could access, like you have my name and you can associate me with this? And he goes, well, no, not really. Not us. The Weather Network can, but not us. We can just associate it with a number. I'm like, but that's essentially the same thing.
Right.
Like,
is it going based
off of... You may
not
know my name, but...
Is it going based off of like location data or cookies or...
It's location data. So it's like, you know,
Wi-Fi,
if you spend...
Bluetooth.
Exactly. So, or when you walk into McDonald's, the Wi-Fi goes on, right? Or whatever.
Right.
Or your data is just pinging, right? So...
Yeah, like hundreds of times a second. Like the phone looks off, it looks turned off, it's not doing nothing, but it's secretly talking to dozens, if not hundreds of different things every second.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's just the new sort of like, it's like credit cards. We think this is all free stuff, but it won't be.
Yeah, credit cards are interesting. That's a whole beast in and of themselves. In terms of like streaming on Twitch, one thing I at least wanted to mention, there's a lot of philosophical questions I wanted to jump in with you as well, but one thing on this one is, what would you love to see about Twitch? What would you love to see change about Twitch compared to like other competing platforms? Because I remember specifically from your conversation with Porto, y'all talked a lot about censorship and that's something I'm pretty passionate about as well. Do you think Twitch is going deeper into like a censorship rabbit hole, cutting people off with terms, or what are your thoughts on all of that?
First and foremost, I think, like, as a general rule, I think that censorship on the internet as a whole is a bad thing, because we have an opportunity here to not copy what we grew up on TV having to be watched and have it be censored, and by
Filtered,
goodness,
and
we can't see a nipple until we're 20 or whatever, you know, like,
right.
maybe we just reconsider what is okay for people to see, right, in their lives.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a wise move to repeat history's mistakes in any way, shape, or form. I think the biggest problem with Twitch is they need to be consistent.
Yes.
Because the problem is somebody's banned for something, and then the same person does something seemingly way worse, and they're like, "But you're good."
3-day ban.
You know?
Right.
But I know that'll never happen. I know that a successful business like Twitch has to keep as many ends as open as they possibly can, right?
Right.
It has to be an ever-changing thing. Unfortunately, people generally are of a nature where if they had steadfast rules, people would just try to ride that line as hard as they could, right? And it would just be more of a headache. So in some ways, I kind of get that Twitch wants to keep it ambiguous and wants to say, we have the power to smack you if you're being an a-hole. But there've just been too many shady cases where it's like, that's clearly they weren't being an a-hole. This is clearly a what would you call it?
Favoritism.
Yeah, like a power move. Yeah.
I mean, writing that line of what's okay and not okay is literally a perfect example would be Amaranth, because she looks at whatever the rules are and just pushes those boundaries up against the wall as far as they'll go. And yeah, she's making, thousands of dollars a day for herself and for Twitch. And, she should, it's a weird line, because like, I think it's totally fine for people to be able to express themselves, make money with their bodies, like all of that stuff. Like, you do you make the cheddar, if people want to pay for that content, if there's a market for it, go crazy. But at the same time, with these platforms like YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and all of them, like, they have to have some kind of boundaries, that if people cross, they got to get kicked off the platform. And when those people are just constantly pushing the boundaries, like, eventually they got to go,
I agree, but she's a smart woman.
She's
right?
very smart.
She's figuring this out. She's the one telling them, okay, put your boundaries down.
Right. Got money on one hand and like boundaries on the other. Which one are you gonna sever?
Yeah. She's got them by the balls, and it's that doesn't change the fact that like good on her. I wish I was in her position, but it doesn't change the fact that they're still shady. They still act shady to other creators, and they don't. Most of all, they don't really present a sense of security for the people using their platform, earning them money, and trying to earn a living. Especially when it's people who just work this is what they do, right? This is their living. And they have expenses, right? Like, running shows like this can be expensive. So,
yeah. I think the other thing people don't realize too is like 90% of Twitch's revenue comes from not even like the 1%, but like the 0.01%. Like the top 500 or top 1,000 Twitch streamers make Twitch almost all of their money. So they're of course going to give them special treatment and extra wiggle room and all of that stuff, compared to somebody who's, averaging 10 viewers and they're like, oh, something slipped over there. We're just going to knock them off right away, and nobody will, we won't hear anything of it. So it's very power moves all around.
Yeah, but yeah, it is. And it's trash. But I would say to most people, if you're a smaller streamer, like I am, it's just follow your heart. And if you're true to what you mean and you're thoughtful about what you're saying, you won't have any problems. No problems at all. Just be a good person, and that's it. And you can say whatever the hell you want to say. It works.
So kind of going down, saying whatever you want to say, What on the philosophical side of things, because I know you do put in your bio that you study philosophy, right, in school?
Yeah.
I know a little bit about philosophy. I took some like humanities classes in school and have been like reading some like terms and ideas and stuff, and I'm always super fascinated with just really thought-provoking ideas. What in particular got you interested in going down the philosophy rabbit hole, going into school and majoring in it? What kind of stemmed that part of your brain where you're like, I really am interested in this, let's learn more about this?
It all started in, well, it's a long story, but basically, to sum it up a little bit, I've worked a lot of jobs where I ended up being sort of like either middle or manager of the group of poorly paid employees.
Gotcha.
Right? So I've spent a lot of time around poorly paid employees trying to raise morale in an ethical way where there's no reason for them to be happy because they're getting paid like shit.
Yeah.
And they're being overworked. So I've spent a lot of time in that, like, that dark feeling with people that have nothing but financial stress and then alcohol problems and all kinds of things. And then when I was studying in school, I kind of had a couple of professors that were talking about like early thinkers and defining happiness and defining happiness as a way that we live in the world, what we need to be happy, but not like a scientific view, because a scientific view might talk a bit more about caloric intake. A scientific view might talk a little bit more about vaccinations and things like that, which is fine and dandy, and those are really important things. But for me, I think I wanted to explore maybe a bit more of a, well, I want to say spiritual, but no, not spiritual, philosophical side of happiness, which also lends itself to spirituality in a way. But, I guess it was to discover the human condition, I guess.
To be able to see like deeper into what it means to be human, almost, or to be able to figure out what questions to ask to get there.
I think when I look out into the world, I see us finding a lot of problems, having this huge sense of solitary confinement, sort of socially, feeling cut off from a lot of other people, being told that we're like this, so maybe we should listen to these kind of people, and we're like this, so we should listen to these people. We're kind of told to find groups and separate and from everybody else and talk to the people that are in our own groups. And it's created a lot of loneliness and a lot of lack of meaning. And there's a lot of vultures coming up trying to poach people to go to a side. And, there's brothers over here for you and there's people over here for you. And I just think that it's a lack of meaning in general for people. And I think meaning can be found by turning our heads away from our rat race pursuits and looking at happiness and looking at things like, flourishing. That's a really old philosophical term. Like, Aristotle talks about eudaimonia and flourishment, and the flower flourishes and becomes a flower. Well, the human needs to flourish too. And what does a human need to flourish? Music, conversation, education. It certainly is not an 8-month ticket into heavy machinery driving, and you do that for the rest of your life.
Right.
That's not how a human being flourishes, but that's how our world is built. And I think I wanted to. I got one life, right? I could go work as a chef. I'm certified as a chef. If I wanted to do that as a job, I could, but that's not what I want to do. I've got one life. I don't want to cook somebody's spaghetti for the rest of my life. That's it's a waste of my life, even if I could make more money at that than I could sitting around pondering the existence of my belly button.
From the spaghetti.
Sure, yeah.
Do you think that you see a time in the near future where all of those very, almost just the big gears that, grind through the economy, like the truck drivers and stuff, like they're going to be automated at some point in the coming up future?
They should have been already.
Think so?
Oh yeah, I think we've been putting it off because
Jobs.
we don't know what to do with this economy because the people at the top are not ready to say, oh yeah, we were supposed to dump all this money into this robot economy and then everybody was supposed to live a utopia, but we don't want to do that. We want another Maserati.
Right.
So
Another yacht.
you know, yeah, well, that's truthfully what it is. Or we want to go to space, which, you know, it's not for me to decide whether Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos going to space is a good or bad thing, but what is happening is people will be out of the workforce and looking for not only financial gain but meaning, when we're going to have a deficit of people and finding meaning in their life.
That's a really good point, honestly.
On one hand, one guy gets to go to space, and on the
Right.
other hand, a guy can't pay his internet bill for a month and therefore cannot talk to anybody he knows.
Yeah. What do you think would be the solution for that? Like, because there is massive wealth inequality all throughout the world, but like especially just more and more people who are in that 0.00001. It's essentially the billionaires. The billionaires of the world are getting richer and richer and richer, and 1 million and under is getting poorer and poorer and poorer. So what do you think would be the solution in a robot economy? Have you thought about any kind of ideas? Is UBI the solution in that regard?
Well, something like that, but like first and foremost, you have to think of your society as okay. Within a society, the way that people act is their culture, right? And a culture comes from the word cultivate. It also shares a word with cult, so never forget that. But a culture cultivates people. And you want these people that you cultivate to be not only productive, but good, healthy, beautiful, like you do in your garden, right?
Right.
You want to treat your city and your community the same way you treat your garden. So you have to start treating the people in your community like flowers. So just like you give your flowers free water, you need to give your citizens free education. Not free, people work to give education so you can raise a people who are educated, and then they will take care of the elderly because they're smart enough to do it and take care of their own, raise smarter, you know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
Just keep raising smart.
I've never understood people who just are against free education or public education or just getting your fellow humans to a smarter level, because if everybody around you is smarter, if you're smarter, if the entire society is smarter, things are going to be better universally, pretty much. So when people are like, I'm against public education, or I'm against just taxes providing for free education, I'm like, that is literally a benefit that will long-term transform our world entirely. Just getting people to be smarter, to create more things, smarter engineers, smarter people in the STEM. It's I've never understood people that are against that, but yeah.
The ideal world, everybody pretty much wants the same thing, and that's what they want: to work as little as possible. They want to enjoy their life as much as possible. Everybody wants the same thing. That's a utopia. The idea of a utopia, speaking of philosophy, has been drawn for thousands of years, right? Some visions, it has people on the ground with their bellies massive, they're pouring beer into their mouth. Like for some people, that's utopia. For others, it's
painting,
mindless
mountains.
sex, whatever it is, right? But
Right.
all these things have been depicted. So it's safe to say that everybody wants an easy, pleasure-filled life, and one that doesn't have a lot of pain. And pain is often associated with work that isn't really work that you want to be doing, right? In the servitude of others.
I'd say though, like in that regards, I feel like sometimes we find the pleasures of life because we've had struggles to get there. Like it's almost a yin and yang balance of you have to have some struggle to be able to appreciate the reward at the end.
I think humans will struggle given the opportunity, but I think we're too busy struggling on things we shouldn't be struggling with,
Like
to actually
minimum
struggle
wage
properly.
jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't struggle to pay the electric bill. You shouldn't struggle to pay to keep warm at night. We should be a society that's past that.
I do agree.
You should struggle to create a business that is competitive. You should struggle to create music that is challenging. You should struggle to create content on the internet that is good. That we should be affording society the chance to struggle that way.
I agree.
But most people can't afford to struggle like that.
They can't like take that chunk of their brain power and focus it on that, because their entire brain consumption is focused on working that 14 hours a day to be able to pay their bills, to be able to provide food, and to pay the electric bill and all of that.
Yeah, you got mom and dad who every single month they can't pay their credit card bill, so it goes up. So actually, just by living, their credit card bill goes up by $100 a month. That's
Right.
just by living, and they don't know what they're going to do about that, but that's the way they have to live. How can you ever possibly expect them to A, live happy, healthy lives, and B, teach their kids how to live happy, healthy lives? You can't.
Where do you think personal ownership comes in the sense of everything, like versus, because I definitely believe so much of what you're saying. I think at the other time there's also a point of society where we want to push away ownership of any kind of problems or anything that's been drawn upon us, and say it's somebody else's fault, or it's the government's fault, or it's blank thing's fault. Do you think we as a society need to take more ownership of our personal responsibilities while simultaneously working to have a government, a society that functions for the needs of people everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, yes. End of sentence. No, yes, it's time.
A combo
it's
of the
time
two.
as well, because nobody wants to take responsibility for anything,
Right.
and that doesn't exclude anybody of any color anywhere. Nobody wants to take responsibility for something so heavy as oppression or as wealth inequality. Nobody wants to take that on. It's heavy. And some people say, as long as it happens after I'm gone, fine, whatever. But we can't just keep
Right.
leaving it to the next generation, because it only gets worse.
Snowballs.
Unfortunately, somebody has to take the responsibility for this and sit down at the table. It's gonna come a day. Well, maybe we will never see this, but like, imagine the aliens come to Earth, right? And like, we try to explain to them like why we're fighting with over tax dollars and education, and they're just
Right.
like, so wait, you guys don't like you guys because meanwhile we're up here flying.
Right. Traveling the galaxy at light speed.
Yeah, no. Well, this is, I guess this could get pretty hippy dippy, but it's not like that. It's not peace to all, man. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling now about this.
No, I'm very much in that. Like, I think there has to be some kind of combination of, and it doesn't even have to be like, it should be the really big topics, like oppression, wealth inequality, all of that stuff. But even like the more macro, like specific to you kind of stuff, like maybe a maxed out credit card, maybe it was the banks being predatory or doing things they shouldn't have done, and X, Y, and Z and all of that. But I feel like there was a point in my life a couple years ago where I just looked at everything in my life and I was like, I take ownership for everything, whether it was my fault or not. It's my responsibility now, and I have to take full ownership of it. And even, when I was in a situation with maxed out credit cards, I took that responsibility and said, I need to find a way to cut these down, to save more money, to slash expenses somewhere, even regardless how tight we are, we have to find money somewhere, even if that means working more and saving more, or, just cutting certain things out. And it seems like a lot of people I've talked to, whether coworkers in life or friends or family members, not a lot of people seem willing to do that. Like, it's always their fault, or this person's fault, or the Republicans' fault, or the Democrats' fault, or just X, Y, and Z's fault. And I'm like, maybe it's just you need to look inside and take some, not all, but maybe some personal ownership and say, where did I go wrong? What could I do better? Let's go from there.
I think that take a credit card is a great example. You can look at it in two ways. You can say, you know what, I need to be better than to go down this path and allow myself to do that. But that doesn't mean that you have to stop saying banks are fucking predatory.
Yes, true.
Like, the fact that if I don't have money in my bank account and they try to take out a payment, then they're going to charge me $45 for being too poor to pay a bill. I get charged, and then they try it again the next night. So there's $90
It's
for being too
expensive
poor.
to be poor.
That's it. I think
Yes.
it's there's a lot of predatory shit that goes on that and they catch people when they're young. They caught me at like a week after I turned 19. The bank was calling me and like, you can this, and they're like, this is a good idea. This is a really good idea. Yeah, everybody has these. You know, a game console, a bunch of games later. You know, it's like the statement says $2,100. It's like, okay, I got $900 left to buy fast food.
Right.
You're 19 years old. You're making dumb decisions. Right.
I think a big part of it is like, I don't think a credit card specifically is the problem. I think it's like a tool, kind of like a flamethrower. You know, a flamethrower could be used to light the campfire and keep you all warm, or you could burn down the entire forest with it. And if you don't teach somebody how to use it, the proper settings for it, you're most likely going to burn down the entire forest. And at least from the American side of things, we have like very little financial education here of talking about mortgages, interest rates, credit cards. You get like kind of a brief overview of, if you cut out your Starbucks coffee every day and save that money for 800 years, you'll be as rich as Warren Buffett. Bullshit. But like you get that talk, but like you don't get the talk about like how to use credit cards properly, how to use loans properly, how to get bank, you know, mortgages and stuff like that properly. And essentially when you're a 19-year-old kid and they're like, hey, here's $2,000 on this, most people are going to burn the forest down because they don't know how to use the tool. Yep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And not only that, like, you know, we also tax the poor harder. So, you know, things like cigarettes and alcohol, it's like, those are classic poor people comforts that are meant, that should be cheap because they're fucking killing you, you know, like, and we tax these things, but not only poor people do them, but the majority of poor people are doing this. And then we think, oh, well, but it's bad for their health, so we got to tax all these things. No, we just put more penalties on being poor than we do on being rich.
That's the government in a nutshell. Is like, let's just tax more on this problem and put a band-aid over it, as opposed to like ask, why are so many people buying alcohol and alcohol skyrocketing, or opium problems? Maybe we should look into the core root problem of that and see what we can do to fix it and alleviate the pain, as opposed to just like, let's just throw more taxes on them. They won't buy more cigarettes if they're $10 versus $8. No, they'll still buy them even if they're $10.
Heavily addicted to them, right? And they're gonna buy them when they're at $16 a pack, because that's the only, like, they work 2 jobs and they have one thing at the end of the day. That's their cigarette. That's their meditation moment, right? That's the one moment where they get to feel alive as a human being, and they're not in the servitude of some asshole who's running a bar or something like that, you know? But no, the government wants a piece of that too.
And I'm not pro like cigarettes or anything like that.
No,
but
neither am I.
But yeah, I think drugs, and like, I'm very pro drug legalization of just like every kind. I'm super libertarian when it comes to drug use and all of that. And I think it's very odd that we live in societies that just exclaim and proclaim this, you're free, you're free, you're free. But if you decide to use this chemical in your body, I'm going to throw you in jail for it, you know, versus when you can go get a liter of alcohol and kill yourself with it. Like, that's totally fine.
And kill others with it.
Exactly.
But you're free to live in our world is what it is. That's what freedom is in the Western world, not just in the United States. In the Western world, it's you're free to live in our society.
It's like bumper guards. Like if you're bowling, there's like just a little bit of bumper guards on there, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of it's done in the name of Lord and Savior, and a lot of it's done in the name of good ethics, and a lot of it's done in the name of
patriotism and capitalism and God.
All different kinds of reasonings that people have for thinking that their choices are the righteous choices, you know?
I do agree. I do agree. And I mean, like, I'm not like super anti-capitalism like some people I've talked to. Like, I think the world in which we live in now, with, you know, poor people having flat screen TVs and iPhones and just really expensive stuff like that is because of capitalism. But like everything in life, it's not black or white. Just because, you know, poor people have an iPhone and a flat screen TV does not mean, you know, the Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos of the world shouldn't be paying more and their fair share to help other people.
No, and think about it. Yes, the poor people of the world have computers, laptops, and cell phone, or whatever, laptops and cell phones. But don't forget, to exist in this world, you have to have a phone and a laptop, pretty much, right? So that's
In 21st
kind of
century,
like
yeah.
saying, oh, you know, like we should be so proud of ourselves. We live in a world where we have refrigerators.
Right.
Nah, homie, we should be past that. Is what I'm saying, right? Like we've already created a world that requires you to have access to the internet. It's kind of like going back to when we were talking about banks, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Canada, at least, if you want to have any sort of job where you get paid properly, you have to have a bank account. And in Canada, there's like 5 main bank accounts or banks, and they all respond to the Bank of Canada. So in order for me to get paid, I need to have an account at one of these banks.
So jobs can't pay you in like a paper check? That's not a thing?
I think, well, maybe you could, but where are you going to cash that?
Right.
Up here, you've got to either cash it at a money mart or you could cash it at a bank. And
I think like 20% of Americans or 15% of Americans don't have banks. So like coming from this perspective, I'm like, that's fascinating to hear.
Yeah, no, not up here. And then you have to pay fees every month for it. And then, like I said, if you don't have enough money, they charge you for that too. So there's kind of a lot of things that they force you to do in order. And force is a big word, but no matter, like, yes, nobody's holding a gun to your head saying you have to have a laptop to get a job, but let's be honest with each other. It's the world we live in today is run on the computer.
True.
So, you know, I don't look at cell phones and laptops as luxuries. My like gaming PC is a luxury, but my $299 Asus laptop that I bring to school and type on, that's a necessity. Absolutely.
Yeah. Same with the internet, same with the electricity, same with, you know, AC if you're in a really hot place, or I totally agree. It's interesting here in like Washington state area, a lot of places don't have ACs, but if you go, you know, to the south, like it's very much required to have ACs. So yeah, it's very interesting. In terms of like more on the philosophy side of thing, are there any specific named philosophers that you've like looked up to or read a lot of their works that like really have inspired you, Cranberry?
Yeah, I mean, Aristotle is kind of like the guy
OG.
that I always go back to.
Yeah.
You know, there's been some, I actually like a lot of the writings of Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Thomas Hobbes, both of their works on their debate of the necessity of a sovereign, so of a head of state, right?
Like a president or a king, or
it could be a president, could be a king. You know, in your guys' instance, it is the president. In our instance, it's the queen. Just having this figurehead that is important, that represents people. And, you know, they've had some interesting debates about. You've probably heard the Thomas Hobbes quote. It's life in the state of nature is nasty, brutish, and short. It's the famous quote. And Rousseau's, and so because of that, you know, you need a sovereign to guide the way to run society, right? We can't do it on our own. It's too hard. And Rousseau, on the other hand, would say, man is born free, but is everywhere in chains. So you're born free, but you can't move anywhere without dragging a ball around with you somewhere.
Right.
And arguing that we need to cut all those chains, right? We need to be left free in the world, you know? So those guys, Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Thomas Hobbes, those are interesting guys to study. And then maybe a more recent guy would be, Christ, I forgot his name. Oh, his name is Alain de Botton, and he writes kind of, they're a little pompous, but he's got a good book called Essays in Love, where he just really sort of breaks down every feeling of love he's ever had, even if it's tiny, if it's from a woman he met at a cafe and just fell in love for 15 minutes, or whether it's his wife that he's been married to for 15 years, or
does he put lust in that love as well? Just like whatever could be
whatever love then translated into.
Interesting.
Right?
It's kind of fascinating.
The good and the bad.
Yeah.
You know, because all of this stuff, I'm a very sort of existential guy when it comes to philosophy. It's all about the human condition. Like, what is the purpose of all of this if we're not happy? Right? You know, things like that. The dark philosophy, as they would say, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that drives people mad. But it all comes down to Aristotle, because he was the guy who said, in life, you need to pursue happiness. This is like the line of the pursuit of happiness comes from him.
Yeah.
and that happiness is found within the pursuit. Not, there is no end goal. You'd never find happiness. Happiness is the pursuit of. Right? So making yourself better. And it's like going back to what we were saying, working 2 dead-end jobs is not the pursuit of happiness. You're not allowing people to have the good suffering, right? The good suffering is learning how to play the piano, learning to run a Twitch channel. These, a marriage, raising dogs. These are good sufferings. These are like the lessons that you want to learn because they make you a better person in life, and they help you become the person you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's the pursuit of happiness, right? Not the American dream of 2 shitty jobs, two shifts at Taco Bell in one day.
Right. Yeah. I used to work at a job similar to that. I made a little bit more money, but it was still just like impossible to move up. It was, getting yelled at from every which corner about sales quotas and customers yelling at you, and systems that were just complete and utter shit. And it was just mind numbing driving home at night. And I'm just like, oh, if an alien zoomed down and beamed me up, I would be so happy right now.
yeah, exactly. Take me,
please. What do you think? Here's a really broad question. What do you think is the meaning of our life? Do you think it is that constant pursuit of happiness? That's the whole meaning forward that everyone should strive for?
I think there is no meaning to our life, so you have to create it. Because I think humans have a tendency to think of ourselves as something much more important than we really are. We are as important to me. We are as important as the leaf on that tree outside. We are as important as a blade of grass. We are like in the spectrum of the size of the universe. We are nothing.
Right. So true. So true.
We are only as important as we can make ourselves. That's it. So I think the meaning of life is to find your meaning in life and to live that unapologetically, no matter how many people tell you it's the wrong way to live. Because chances are, if somebody is so focused on you having the wrong way to live, it's that they're doing it wrong, and they're just upset that you're not suffering the same way they are.
So true. When you tell people that a lot of people who end up forming companies or forming businesses or ideas, a lot of people kind of give them some hesitation when they tell them that they're leaving their job to pursue a dream or to pursue something creative. And they're like, are you sure you want to do that? There's so many things that could go wrong and fail. But like, humans are so obsessed with failure in such a negative light, whereas failure is not good or bad. It's just whatever you make of it and whatever lessons you learn from it. And same with succeeding. Like, you can succeed in a very negative way and, win by very bad examples and become very cocky and full of yourself in a regard. And you can fail beautifully and learn from it and, make adjustments and succeed next time. So yeah, failure is interesting. I'm kind of upset with just how many people take failure as such a negative when it's not.
Well, I think you have to look at what failure means to them. Does it mean that you've lost time to earn a bit of money that you can put away in an RRSP? I'm not sure what you call them down there, but like a retirement savings thing, right? Or 401k or something like that, I think you guys call them. Are they thinking about lost time, lost investment opportunity? And it's like, but maybe I'm thinking of, I don't want to be 56 and think I should have played in a band when I was 20. Like it's a failure to look back on your life and think I was too scared to try something. That's a failure.
No regrets.
The failure is not trying to do something and realizing and trying to do something and gaining the wisdom of A, this is harder than I thought. B, I need to work harder at this, or C, I'm really good at this. Right. Those are all lessons that you could learn, and they're all really good lessons to learn.
I agree. I very much agree. In the grand scope of things, do you think there is an inherent order in nature, or do you think all of this is just pure chaos and chance? I almost think, now that I read that and like said that question, almost in an alternative way to phrase it is like, do you think there is possibly a god figure kind of bringing order to everything, or do you think literally it's just explosion of Big Bang and everything that you and me hear in this conversation and everything else is just happenstance?
I've always believed in what I now know to be a version of the philosophical God, which means I've never believed in a white bearded dude in the sky ever. That just never made sense to me.
No Zeus.
But yeah, no, exactly. No Zeus, nada like that. But maybe. But the point I guess I'm trying to make is that, like, let's say we prove the Big Bang. Well, then the Big Bang could be the philosophical God, because what caused the Big Bang and what, like, nothing before has to be something, and that could be some sort of plan, and maybe this could be on repeat, but to a certain extent it just doesn't matter, right? Like,
so grand and big.
Yeah, I don't think, maybe there is, and I just don't think we could ever understand it, so I've never seen a point in attempting to understand it. I've only sort of tried to think, like, I don't know, I trust humans to look inside of them and sort of try to be a reflection of how they want to be treated, and if they do that, then you're being successful. And no, there's no divine order, I don't think.
It's all chaos and chance.
But there could be.
Yeah.
But there could be. I just don't possibly see how I could know, because I only experience my own consciousness. I don't experience yours. For all I know, you're just a robot.
Oh man, I have had this conversation with people before, especially like about consciousness, in the sense that the only thing that I know 100% for sure is true and certain is that there is somebody behind my eyeballs that
whether it's you or not,
whether it's me or not, or something there. Like, that's the only thing I know that's true, is that there's somebody behind my eyeballs, and this is all me. But I talked about this on stream a couple days ago. Like, if this is all true that I know, but what if this whole entire world was a story or a game or some kind of simulation or something, like, for myself, just me as an example, because I know, like, my consciousness is real, but maybe this world is filled with NPCs for myself and other people. If they experience consciousness or not, like, I'll never be able to fully truly know.
Do you know that your consciousness is real, or is this all just being created by the second, right? Like, did anything that actually happened before what's happening this very second actually happen, or do you just have these memories of them, right?
Yeah.
There's no possible way you could know that either, because if that were the case, then you would just think you knew.
Right. Maybe it's just we're waking up every day in a brand new game. I mean, do you think there's, like, what are your thoughts when it comes to the simulation theory and all that stuff?
Well, it's just a roundabout way of saying, again, like the divine order thing, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I can't get out of it, no matter how hard I try. Not that I'm trying to get
Unless
out of anything,
Morpheus.
but like, you know, tomorrow feels like today, and it always feels like yesterday. Like, so it's a constant. I know that it's coming. I have 24 hours to do something because that's the way we've organized it, and it's mine. It's the only thing that's mine. This isn't mine. This could break, and then I have nothing.
Right.
This, like, my vape isn't mine, and nothing is mine except for the decisions that I make. So I'm not going to let, even if somebody told me, no, there is a divine order, I'd be like, nah, that's my order. I'm not going to let anybody take control of the one thing that I've got.
Do you not believe in fate? Do you believe more in, like, the destiny's not written, you're plowing your own way forward?
Here's the thing. If I believe in fate, it's something so much larger than me. I think I am far too insignificant to have any sort of fate, to have any sort of meaningful impact on. Maybe I could have a meaningful impact on human society that we have created in the things that we look for in terms of success. But it's such a long shot to have any sort of, like, impact on the existence of time and space.
Right.
So I can't believe that even if somebody has planned a path for me, that path is significant in any way other than to say it makes something else work.
Right.
That maybe on our planet turns into Jeff Bezos, but really in the grand scheme of things is absolutely nothing to the world, to the universe, you know?
Right. I mean, that some people even argue that with the aliens. Like, even if aliens are real, would they are we just the ants on the anthill? Like how much, yeah, I mean, how intrigued are they to come to our planet and just see, you know, tailless monkeys just bombing each other and trying to kill each other and starving each other just for more of this, they call this dollars and currency or whatever. And I mean, but on the flip side of that, you know, we get fascinated by chimpanzees, and you know, we get fascinated with butterflies and insects and stuff. So maybe there are aliens out there fascinated just with watching this crazy ass show called Earth.
We're fascinated with life, so that we have and life that we see is also fascinated with life, right? Dogs, cats, like, you know, I heard somebody describe, it was a philosopher once, say, like, there's nothing more life affirming, and you would know this because you have 3 dogs, than when you are alone-ish, or just like in your, like, say you're with your wife and your 3 dogs in your, this is your comfort zone, there's no TVs or webcams or anything on,
sure.
And you're sharing a look with your dog in the eyes, and they say, like, in the body, when you do that, it releases it tells your body not to release so much cortisol, so you lose stress. So you're empathizing with this other living thing. Even if the dog can't say hello, it can't say anything, doesn't really need to.
There's
you're
still
empathizing
that connection
about breathing and how hot it is and how comfortable you are, you know? So you're having this communication. So there's no reason to believe that life outside of Earth wouldn't just be fascinated with other life. Like, every piece of life on Earth is fascinated with other life, you know? So
do you think there's life in our solar system?
Yeah, but nothing like, I think there could be, but nothing like what we may want it to look like
single cell organisms living in the oceans of Europa or something.
And that's where I think is the best chance to find it, for sure. But I mean, I definitely think there's life in space, for sure. I definitely think there's civilizations, huge civilizations. It doesn't make sense for there not to be, but
isn't it fascinating that, like, 100 years ago, if you would have said that exact same sentence, people would have thought you were batshit crazy, and nowadays probably the majority of people, over 50%, think there's at least something possibly out there?
You can't, just with the information that you could just get by going on YouTube, you can understand the size of space,
right?
Like, or you can try to understand the size of space. It's impossible to understand the size of space because you've never seen anything bigger than the sky,
right?
And the sky is not even a pixel on Jupiter when Jupiter fills a whole picture, right? So
the pale blue dot.
Yeah, exactly. So we can't recognize the size and scope, but once you try to wrap your head around it and you realize how many planets and stars there are out there, it just doesn't make any sense to say we're the only one that had happened on.
Yeah. I mean, even if
we may never meet them.
Right. Especially if they're in, like, other galaxies, like, there's probably not going to be, even millions of years in the future, it's going to be incredibly difficult to ever go from the Milky Way galaxy to another galaxy. Outside of, like, maybe wormholing through space, that's the only real possibility. But, like, even light speed travel, which is the fastest thing that we're currently aware of, even light speed travel would still take tens, hundreds, thousands of years just to cross, like, the street to our fellow star neighbor.
Well, isn't Andromeda like 2,000 light years away?
No, which is it's like 2 million.
Okay, there you go. So
light years traveling at the speed of light.
So I think and going a little bit off topic here, but I think that, like, our desire to search in space is an important thing to do. Like, I didn't mean to sort of demean Richard Branson's thing where he went up to space. I thought that was badass. And, you know, when he said, like, man, I just wanted to do this ever since I was a little kid, it's like, there's a part of me, as much as I'm not a huge fan of billionaires and this shit that's going on Earth, that wanted to do that, you know? Like, that'd be sick. I wish I had the money to go up to space. I've always wanted to see space, you know? If somebody offered me a maybe one-way ticket to Mars, you know, it's like, I can't guarantee you come back, I'd take it in a heartbeat.
Dude, Cranberry, same, me too, man. Like,
what a life. That's meaning in life.
You're an explorer. You know? That's so human.
Yeah. It's meaning, and it's doing something and feeling like you're part of a growing, that'd be so cool.
NASA's gonna watch this and be like, I found our first 2 volunteers. Let's go. But yeah, I mean, like it's such a human characteristic to just want to get on the ship and travel across the ocean with nothing in front of you, maybe falling off the edge of the world and dying, but maybe finding something glorious and something that's just unknown. So yeah, I would also take that. I'm so incredibly fascinated with space. Yeah, if they offered me a ticket, like maybe not the very, very first ones, because let them set up camp and everything, but after that, I'd be like, a lot of people have died on Earth. Nobody's really died on Mars, so why not?
Okay, then I got a question for you, and this is going to be a hard one. I'm coming at you with a hard-hitting question.
Let's go.
You get your ticket to go to Mars, okay? They let you take one of your dogs.
Oh God, that is a mean question. Ooh.
The other ones you can leave in the care of other people. They'll be safe. They'll be alive. But one of them gets to be the first dog on Mars.
First dog on Mars. Oh, I love them all equally. So I would probably just randomize flip a 1 through 3. Like honestly,
they can't understand English.
Oh, well, I know they can't understand English, but like honestly, deep down, I mean, I love them all. Like as soon as I start thinking about like Layla, I'm like, oh, but I love Ellie, but I love Booker, and I don't know. Ellie's always been really close to me. Like she usually kind of follows me around a little bit extra more than the other ones, so maybe her. She's not as rambunctious and hippity hoppity as Layla and Booker are. She's a little bit more low key, so I don't know, but I would probably just randomize 1 through 3 and be happy with whatever, or be sad with whatever.
All right, that one was for the comment section in your chat. Now they got something to brag you about for the rest of your time.
I thought you were gonna ask if you could bring wifey or not, or like.
No, I was assuming I wouldn't go that deep.
I mean, that could be a deep question. Like if you had a ticket to go to Mars, but it was only a 1-person ticket, well, that'd be a deep question.
It's easy for me because I'm not in a relationship. And I've had this conversation with my family since I was like 18. I've let them know since I was 18. Like if I get a ticket to go up there, it's
happening.
Oh yeah, just so you know.
I mean, I feel like it's the, I don't know, they want to use the word mature or whatever to say like I have to stay here for my family and everything, but I don't know. At the same time, there's something so internal and powerful pulling about just being first or being an explorer or doing something so grand that, because like I don't mean to dismiss my wife or like families or whatever, but like so many people have had families. That's an experience in life that so many people have had, but to travel to another planet is something incredibly rare. So I don't know, that would be a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think if it wasn't tough for a person to decide that, you should check your humanity. Right. You should go to Dark Souls and get a humanity or pop that, because like seriously, like you should ask yourself if that doesn't excite you. I mean, maybe this is me being harsh on people that just aren't interested in that, but I'll say it anyway. If that doesn't excite you, then maybe it's me that doesn't understand you on a human level. But I'd have a hard time being like truly believing somebody saying they wouldn't want to consider that.
No, I totally agree. And I think like if I was on one side going like, oh yeah, I'll just go to Mars and screw her, whatever, I don't care about her, or on the opposite side like, I'll definitely stay here, screw going to Mars. But I think there's just such that middle point where both are like so at friction with one another where I don't know. It
sucks having to make a decision. It would suck to have to make a decision where you will regret it either way.
Exactly. Either way, if you stay on Earth, you will think about it every single day. Or if you go
and the other way, you'll miss her every single day. Yeah.
Right. And especially if it's like this is a one-way ticket, you are not coming home. Like it's oh man, do I choose myself an adventure or do I choose the comfort of family? And she's probably gonna watch this and be like, you asshole. But I'm just being honest.
No, but I mean, I think even if, and I don't want to speak for your wife, but it's like even if her answer was quickly no, I would stay with you, I'm sure everybody can understand on a human level. It's like,
but
it's like saying, like, I can't think of a good example, but it's like the old trope of the dad selling his Camaro to buy the minivan for the family. He'll always regret selling that Camaro for the rest of his life. But
yeah,
and so you can always understand. Life is suffering, as the Buddhists say. So it's about, that's a meaningful way to suffer, is to have a decision that incredible, just the opportunity to have that decision where you have to decide between two incredibly important things. People should be so lucky to have that opportunity.
I totally agree. And maybe in our lives, maybe not anytime soon, but maybe towards the end of our lives, that decision will be something that people will be able to make.
Yeah, geez, we'll be the last. This is I have a theory that in my hometown, at least, I was looking out at, beside me is an old folks home, and it's a really nice one. It's like on the hill, looking over the town. Nice. It's where the rich ones go. And so I was looking at it with my dad, and I was just kind of saying, like, I don't know what those are going to turn into when you guys are gone, when your generation is gone, because my generation can't afford that. Nobody. Those are just going to be broken down, abandoned old places, that
maybe
people will just, well, maybe, people just break in. They can't afford to buy these things.
Right.
It's going to be Mad Max out here. We're just going to break into all your old luxury stuff and sit there. Yeah, who knows what opportunities we may have as we're older, but we may be the last people to inherit these earthly old folks' homes.
Maybe. I mean, here in the US, like, there is massive home buying going on by like big, this is so messed up to even just talk out loud because it's so frustrating, but like big giant investment firms like BlackRock and Fidelity, like, they're buying up houses all across the United States just with the sole purpose of re-renting them right back out to people. So we're essentially becoming a nation where, extremely super wealthy individuals and wealthy corporations own the houses. And that was like the one sliver of hope a lot of people had for building wealth, is most wealth in this country from the 90% of people was through real estate. It wasn't through 401ks. 401ks was like a chunk of it, but most of it was through real estate. And now that's just being ripped out from under us as well.
Yeah, well, same thing's happening up here. And actually, I know there's a lot of talk in Canada, say the middle upper class to the upper class, talking about buying property in the States too. Right. So like, this isn't just for sale to the rich people in the US. This is just for sale to rich people around the world. Yeah. Right. And it's the same in British Columbia, where I live. They're inviting the Chinese over with their loads of money to buy the houses. They're inviting the rich people from California to come up and buy houses. And no one can live in the house in the city. This is way too expensive.
It's super prevalent in places like Vancouver is like the San Francisco of Canada, from what I hear, and Toronto is up there with like Manhattan for pricing and stuff. So well, where we live in particular on the Pacific Northwest, right? Mm-hmm. That's just known for being incredibly inflated in living cost. Right.
It's like the most beautiful place on the planet.
It is gorgeous.
Pacific Northwest is amazing.
Yeah, like, so many people have tried to tell me, we should move to the East Coast. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not even from the Pacific Northwest originally, but I just moved here like 10 years ago, and I've just been in love with it ever since. There's literally everything. There's snow, there's heat, there's rain, there's the ocean, there's, the hills, and it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
And you can just drive like 3 hours that way, and there's the Rocky Mountains. Like, everything is there. No matter what you want to do, it's within 3 hours drive. There's a forest fire burning at every corner. It's beautiful.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
A couple more questions I did have for you. I know we were talking a little bit earlier about technology. What are your thoughts of technology weaving itself into every aspect of our life, like social media, smartwatches, home listening devices, self-driving cars? Eventually we're going to get like glasses that probably have ads built into them or whatever.
We've already got them, right?
Yeah,
pretty much. I think it's inevitable. I think the internet and the computer, the internet and the internet device is what I should say, is the greatest, is a greater revolution than the Gutenberg press, right? Than the printed word. This is free information for everybody. This is free social groups for everybody. The
scary thing is free disinformation as well.
Yes, that's true.
It's the Wild West.
Which is why I think it is a society's duty in this day and age, given what is afforded to us by society's marketplace, if you will, to use a philosophical term, where like Socrates used to stand in the marketplace and scream his bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Twitter is, and that's what Facebook is, right? Right? Anybody can stand up on the platform and yell, and it's not about how loud they yell. It's about how many people hear it and yell it out again and repeat their chants, right?
Right.
So, I think it's integral to keep up. I think this technology fuse with our lives is integral if you want to exist. I mean, you and I both are now learning to or already understand the importance of monetizing different parts of our lives, right? That's part of streaming, is like, okay, I'm going to try to monetize my game playing. Now I'm going to, and everybody does these. How can I monetize my hobby? Some people monetize sex on the internet. You can monetize every part of your day if you choose.
Right.
And I think it's going to just get more and more like that, but at the cost of ridiculous advertising.
And privacy concerns are just privacy completely gone. It already is, but like even more so.
It'll be like that movie Demolition Man.
Right. Here's a really deep one that I've really thought a lot about, and I'd love to hear kind of your opinion on it. Do you think humanity should pursue endless immortality, or do you think part of being human is the fate of death awaiting us at the end of it?
I think what makes me important as a human being is that I am not important. I am as important as the blade of grass, as I said. I'm as important as the tree, as the sheep, as the bear, as the buffalo. We are all as important as each one of us. And somebody being important, say, as a cheap example, somebody like Bill Gates, maybe Elon Musk, they're only important because we deem them important. And so we are important insofar as we can deem people important. But I don't think there's anything for me outside of being born in 1986 and dying in 2000, whatever year I die in, right? Like, I don't, like I said, sort of, I can't get past the arrogant and pompous way it makes me feel to think that I'm somehow important on some sort of grander scale. It just doesn't make sense to me. There's too many humans for it to be like that. And I take great comfort in thinking that way, because then that puts all the power that puts all the onus and responsibility, like you were saying, of finding happiness on me. And I'm not restricted by any creator or destiny or anything that I'm not trying to find out what to do. I just
rise to the expectations of whatever.
Yeah. Follow your nose, to quote a famous poet, Sam Toucan.
If given the opportunity to like take a potion or whatever that would give you immortality, would you take it?
No. I think eventually you would go insane.
Yeah, you'd lose your mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much change a person can take in their life, I think. Every decade we kind of reevaluate ourselves, and people make the big deal like, oh, you're 30 now, or you're 40 now, or you're 50 now.
Right.
We reevaluate. What do we learn, and how much different am I from 10 years ago? And do I still make these dumb mistakes that I hit myself over, or I'm not making those mistakes that I used to hate about myself? So every so often we become wiser, and then I think in humanity we reach a point where we stop learning and we start to dig in our heels a bit on the things that have helped us be successful, and then that's when it's time for us to shut up and go. because we're no longer representing forward movement in humans. And I don't mean we should just hack off everybody's head when they're done working and whatever. It just means that's when it's time for us to stop sort of trying to project our vision of healthy life for others onto others.
Yeah, we have a huge problem with that in society, is like, what I think is good, you should follow the exact same thing. We have a big problem with that.
We do have a big problem with that, but you know, it's because people invoke either a righteous being, or they say there's no such thing as relative morality. Morality is just a static thing that exists, right? It's like, I can't get down with that. Like, it's just not like that, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it, like, just, I think it's interesting. I feel like the older I get, the more, I wouldn't even say the more you learn, but using the word wiser, the wiser one gets, the more you start to realize just how little you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the old saying. All that I know is that I know nothing at all.
Yeah.
That is the wisest thing a person can know of themselves. But then man sometimes will start to say, I'm wise because I know that I know nothing at all. And then all of a sudden you're becoming very ignorant to the fact that you are blocking out things that could make you unwise because you believe you found the ultimate philosophical wisdom. That is, I have an open book.
Right.
You know, I'm so open that I'm just so perfect. And it's like, no.
It's wise to know nothing, but it's like,
you've closed that one part that allows you to be imperfect, you know? So
it's a constant balancing act. And I mean, I know I keep saying it over and over, like the spectrum or the black and white, but just once I started looking at life like that like there shouldn't be a 0 or 1 option, or a what's it called, binomial, or like two options, binary,
like,
yeah,
you know, 0, 1,
right? Like just everything is shades of gray. And you know, you can fall, like, you can look at some of the worst people in history or some of the best people in history and find pros and cons with all of them. So,
well, you know, the thing, I wouldn't even look at it that way. I would say we can all find people that we look at as geniuses and people that we look at as villains in life, but at some point or another, a large amount of people followed them, right?
Yeah.
For something. And there's a high likelihood that we would have made a mistake to either be a European conqueror, settler, to be a Nazi, to be a whatever in the time that existed and was the popular political.
Right.
There's going to be a ton of people in your country in the next 15 years who are going to be like, I didn't vote Trump. No, I didn't vote him. Nope. But you know they did, right? But nobody wants to be on the wrong end of history, right?
Yes. And I think
but history will show that they won something.
Yes.
So there was enough of them to fight for some sort of injustice, or in their mind, static morality.
Right. I think we talked about it in your stream a couple days ago about the rise of like Hitler in Nazi Germany, and just how he took a very disgruntled, very frustrated group of people and found these causes to throw together in a pot, and was very charismatic and was very forthcoming, and it was like, I have solutions, I have ideas, and was just a great politician and speaking to people, was a great speaker. And it's that charisma that led people to follow him, and then it just became so corrupted. I mean, it was arguably very corrupted from the start, but like just all these things fell into the pot that just turned it into just what we know of it in history now. And I mean, same thing with Stalin, same thing with like, you know, the Mongols or European conquerors, or just like list any conqueror in history. Is it something in humanity to want to be imperialist and expand and to just get your ideas and make the next person forcefully believe them? I don't know.
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about when I started to relate the words culture, cultivate, and cult, right? So people will join a cult, and in a cult you cultivate a certain culture. I think that humanity. I think that people. Say again. Sorry.
I like that phrase.
Yeah, I think that I'm thinking carefully what words to say, because I want to say we have a right to, but I don't think we have very little rights when it comes to these kinds of things. We have the right to, I don't know what our God-given rights are, if you know what I mean. Pardon the term.
Sure, yeah.
But I think that we have a natural inclination to come together and create societies and label one thing as bad and good. So we have no problem labeling. I mean, clearly, if you look at what's happening in Haiti today, a group of people thought their leader was something bad, and so they killed him. They assassinated the president, and people will always come together to purge what they consider to be evil, vile, sinful, right? Like this with this existing, we can never have a good society, is how they'll justify it. So I think people will always fight over what is the right way to use this land. Who is the righteous people? Who are the righteous people? What is the right way to do things? We're never going to fully agree on that, ever, 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 ever. War is inevitable. It's just that I don't think we've seen a natural war for 120 years. Maybe, probably since World War One, I would say.
Even more so than World War II?
I would say so, because World War One felt like the tipping point among nations. Like it was tension that had built up really, that just, it took that one shot and bam.
Yeah.
World War II, to me, it felt like a power move by the Americans. It felt like a very sort of, if you look at the way America took a bunch of territories after World War II, it was like, we're just going to take these two and call them ours. And also, we're going to make the UN now. And Japan, you're not allowed to have a military anymore because you were bad guys. And I think there's a lot of restrictions. It was a power grab by a lot of countries, is what I thought. I think the Americans didn't really want to get involved until the Germans started to do real things. Just like the Russians didn't really want to until they came knocking on their door. These two powers were more focused on their own thing and realized we can take this major player away, Russia.
Yeah.
Right? And then it'll just be you and us, which is what it ended up. That's where we are today, right?
Yeah. I was talking with my wife about this a few days ago, like in a very grand, big looking view back on it. We're talking about like why America is a superpower, why it's like the leading economic force in the world, and so much of what has made our country so powerful, so rich, so X, Y, and Z really does stem back to World War II specifically, when Europe was getting bombarded, getting overthrown by Nazi Germany. Like Hitler was just conquering all over Europe, turning to Russia. The Japan was invading, like China invading like all the seas and everything. And America, I don't know if this is good or bad. I mean, I don't know. There's so many black and white and gray and all of that, but like America didn't really get involved in the war until like the 9th hour when Japan bombed America. And then that was the sign where it's like, okay, now we're going to go to war. But by that point, 80% of the war was already done. And when you're bringing in a superpower with more oil, big tanks, and like a ton of people, nuclear bombs at the end of it, but like going into Europe when Europe was completely devastated after World War II, most of the coming decades, Europe was spent like rebuilding their countries back up, whereas America they still are. And America, right after the World War II, we just came home and we had tons of money. We were like, us and the Soviet Union were like the two main superpowers in the world. So and then the Soviet Union ended up falling in the 80s and late or early 90s. So much of why America is so powerful and economically able to pull strings and be this, almost, dare I say, police state of the world does stem back to World War II and getting involved late at the end of the game when they probably should have gotten involved earlier. But it's like, it just comes to the point, like, do you get involved in someone else's war before they attack you? Do you wait until you're attacked? Are you defensive? Are you offensive? But it led us to where we are today.
Well, I think that, like, there was a power grab for the world at World War II, especially. Hitler was going to take Europe, and then he probably could have taken Europe. He made the mistake of trying to take Russia.
Right.
That was his mistake. then you would have had Germany, you would have had
Soviet Union.
Soviet Union. America would have absorbed Canada by then because we wouldn't have had our parent country in Great Britain. We would have been a lost puppy. It would have only made sense. So then America's got that side of the world. That is the new United States of America. And Japan has all of China. Like there's 3-4 territories in the world, right? That would pretty much be it. Same with Australia, it would be absorbed. Germany would basically claim the empire. America decided this is an opportune chance for us to go out there, establish ourselves as the superpower, and we're going to, like after dropping the bomb on Japan, it was like, you do whatever we say now because we have the power to kill every person in your country. You just saw it twice.
Right.
And they're like, shit, we'll do whatever you want. You want
War's
access
over.
to our islands. You want these islands, those are yours. And they claimed a lot of territory and set themselves up to be in the position that you guys are today, with bases all over the world, watching every little place.
Yes, that's a whole nother conversation. We probably don't have time to dive into it, but I'm extremely passionate in not a good way about the
China
military.
does it too,
right?
And Russia does it too. It's part of being a world power,
right?
And you're right. This is a conversation for another day, but something to think about in case anybody thinks we're doing any bashing is when we ask ourselves these questions about why these other nations. And me, I come from Canada, right? So I do get to enjoy socialized healthcare, things like this, that a lot of other countries, smaller countries in the quote unquote Western world get to enjoy that your country does not. There's another question that I haven't quite answered. Maybe it's something to think about for both of us and for anybody listening is a lot of these smaller countries get to exist under the military umbrella of the United States. So
and NATO.
Like Canada gets to specialize in our military. A lot of other countries get to specialize, spend way less money. And America's like, you think about playing StarCraft and you make your tons of first units, right? You send off, that's America. And the more expensive units are the tiny ones. So they get to, we get to spend less on our military because we exist under an economy and a military economy that is the United States.
Do you think?
So
yeah.
Do we owe that something? Is it because that we're allowed to do this? Is the American freedom actually the one making the entire Western world able to be like this?
Right. And I mean, so much of that too is with how much money the United States pours into militaries and bases and stuff, especially with NATO. In Europe, like that has allowed Scandinavian countries the opportunity to not have to, or just so many countries to not have to put so much money into the military that they can spend a little bit extra on stuff like healthcare and education and parental leave and stuff. Whereas, the United States spends more money on our military than like the next 13 countries combined or some crazy shit like that.
But does that serve to keep the Western world, I'll say it again, alive? Right. And to what benefit does that serve the majority of people? I don't know. I don't know if I have the answer for that, but that's an interesting thing to think about because it's very easy to want to say, even I'm sure as an American, we're fucking everything up. We're the root cause of all the shit in the world today. It's like, yeah, but whenever I think of something negative like that, I always try to think, well, what if
other side
they didn't spend on their military?
Would Russia have invaded Europe? I mean, would
Russia
China
invaded Canada because we're right there, right?
Right.
And why wouldn't they? That's a lot of fresh water, a lot of oil. That's a lot of, we got a lot of resources up here, right?
It's interesting listening to some politicians because there's a lot of politicians who are very like, we should withdraw all of our military back to the US and we should essentially like cut the cost of our military budget so we can invest in things like better infrastructure or healthcare or like education and stuff. But then there are those other politicians who do say like, I've been to the Middle East, or I've been to Soviet Union, now Russia, and the reason the world is as, I don't know if balanced is the word, but somewhat balanced as it is because of this police state powerhouse that is the United States. And I don't know. I mean, I think a solution would be coming in the middle, and for the US to spend less on military and to have less military bases, and for a lot of these other countries around the world to spend a little bit more and just become like a collective unit. But then at the same time, does that become a world military, and who's in charge of the world military? And then you start getting into big questions of, you know, what is country territory versus what's like a war, like, yeah, that's, it can divulge
Are we
pretty
allowed
quickly.
to have a cultural philosophy anymore? No, because if we just become homogenized like that, where we all live under one worldview, well, then it means nothing to be an American versus being a Somalian, or being Chinese, or being Mongolian. It means there's no distinction, because we all work towards one thing. And actually, you know, there are countries that want to do that. There are government policies in some countries that want that to be the case.
In a very Black Mirror way, in a very dark tech future way. I mean, like, do you think that could work out, where we get to a point hundreds or thousands of years in the future where we finally have decided, like, the only country is humankind, is Earth? We're all one under one collective together government, and like cultures all across everywhere can stay the same, but we're going to be one collective human race? Or do you think there's just going to be too much fighting between groups all over the world to ever make that happen?
Well, I'll say that I think that you asked me at the start if there's any sort of philosophers that I look at, and I sort of stand out to me, and I said Thomas Hobbes and Jean-Jacques Rousseau. And I think this is nice that it comes to this, because they argued the importance of a sovereign, whether somebody in charge is a good thing or whether somebody in charge is a bad thing. So a world government, it kind of, on the surface, it doesn't taste very good to me. That sounds like an elimination of culture. That sounds like an elimination of how a lot of people, that sounds like we would have to determine one right way of living. And that seems like a really hard thing to do for us. I don't think we would all agree on that.
Quick on that. Do you think it could ever come something the way like the United States is structured, where you have like states with their own rules and then an overarching federal government? Like maybe Canada's still there, Mexico's still there, Germany and Japan, they're still there, but there's one collective like worldwide government that's kind of over the heads of everything. Do you think
the UN tries to act like that?
Right.
But again, the scary thing about that is that we have to have a common philosophy. We'd have to have a common societal and cultural goal. Yeah. And who's to say that my goal for a happy life and a good life is the same as yours? And it shouldn't necessarily be. We're two different people, right? So it would be a lot easier if we wanted to do things like explore Mars and do all these things. Yes, it'd be a lot easier if we all did it together, but you know, it'd be a lot easier to create new music and new foods and things if we kind of let ourselves go into different societies and traded with each other and visited each other and appreciated each other. So I think the answer is no. I think actually, especially looking at America and Canada, like North America is a really good example of a place that will eventually break into many different little countries.
I've thought about that,
because where you and I live, we as citizens of this part of the continent have way more in common, and not only in likes and wants and what we would want our taxes to pay for, our kinds of education, because geolocation does matter, right? We're informed by the same forest fires that go around near us. We're informed by the same climate patterns. And somebody in Ontario would have a lot of this, more of the similar political leanings and wants from somebody from New York and from Michigan, right? So you've heard of things like Cascadia, right? I as far-fetched as some people may say that is, I see that as being eventually, maybe not in our lifetimes, probably something that will happen, because it only makes sense that the people in this region, once the forest fires get so bad, will want to just have a system where the forest fires are really bad in British Columbia and the Washington ones can come up and help, and there's free movement because it just makes more sense. These forests are the same forests. They just span a border, you know?
Yeah, right.
I think eventually we're just going to get sick of trying to govern these long countries with separation in between people, right?
Totally agree. I think I mean, at least in the United States specifically, like there's at least 5 or 6 different chunks where you could just split these off into their own countries with their own kind of governance. And, you know, people in the South can have whatever, less taxes and no healthcare and all whatever they want to do. And, you know, people on the West Coast, you know, if we want to go into that like socialized medicine, socialized education system, like, and there's so many people from each part of these, you know, each part of these locations that think similarly, like, and the only thing binding us together is this overarching federal government that's like, oh no, we all have to come to agreement. It's like, why do we have to come to agreement when people on the West Coast are so different in their thinking to people in the South?
Well, just look at a map of where legalized pot. That tells you everything, because it's all centralized in one area. And and I would ask people listening not to think of just weed. Like, take the weed out of it's an example of people having common interests and common desires, right? They tend to group up in a certain geolocation. It could be legalizing heroin. Maybe I shouldn't think of drugs. It could be banning fossil fuels, right?
Yeah, sure. Banning fossil fuels.
You would find people locate in the same geolocation, right?
Right.
Because the same issues that affect the Salt Spring Islands in British Columbia affect, what are the San Juans in off of Washington, right?
Yeah,
it's the same land,
right?
So the people are just as concerned for it, you know.
Totally agree.
The federal border doesn't mean anything.
Totally agree. And, you know, if people want to call us like crazy ass liberals or whatever, that's totally fine, because there are other places that they can live with. And that's been a big thing. I don't know if I'm like secretly conservative in that way in my brain, but like I've always thought states in the United States should have more impact on just their specific, I don't know, their specific structures or medicine or education. Like, states should have more of an impact. So if you don't like something in California, that is totally fine. You can move somewhere to Texas or Florida, and it is vastly different because the states have that much power. But we live in a place where states have like a little bit of difference between each one of them, and then the federal government kind of overarches everything. And I see why that's good for some aspects, like maybe a military, but in other roads between all the states and countries and everything. But at the other side, I mean, if people hate the politics of California, that's totally fine, because there could be other states that they can go to and have a different experience. And maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, but like, we'll never be able to try these different systems if we're both trying to come together on them. Like, let's just, I'm open-minded that we should separate them out and have different chunks and different governments.
Those words like liberal and conservative have been co-opted in a really weird way. And I'll give you great examples of why they're actually the opposite of each other. It's a very conservative idea to do something like create a rooftop patio where you grow your own food. Why? Because that's creating your own food source in your own town,
not
supplying
taxed.
your own, right? No, yeah, like you're not shipping out to anywhere else. You're employing the people of your town, people that look like you, talk like you. That's an incredibly conservative idea to have, you know, say locally sourced foods. It's a very liberal idea. The liberals were the original liberal idea were the ones who, the general tenet of liberalism is to say, it's to find use in something. It's to find proper use of land. And it was really, liberalism is what we used to justify taking the land from the Aboriginal people here and saying, we're going to use this land better. So what you hear on the news now with the words liberal and conservative are they're buzzwords designed to label you something that don't really mean anything.
Yes.
I've been called a liberal so often, and I'm just like, man, I am so far from a liberal. You have no idea what that is. I'm more of a conservative, but not you're conservative. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not I wouldn't vote for any conservative party person because that's not the thing.
I mean, a huge problem, I mean, at least in the American system, which I think is very unique to America and maybe very select few countries, is the fact that corporations can just massively lobby politicians with millions of dollars to do their bidding. And it's like, if you're a politician, do you want to do all these campaigns for all these, Main Street gatherings for all these people in your constituents? Or do you just want to go to the big Amazon that's in your town and be like, hey, I'll do what's in your interest if you sign me $1 million check or whatever. It doesn't go directly to them, but it goes to a PAC that further funds them if you align with their vision. So yeah,
it goes to them.
It goes to them. But I know some people in the US are like, well, you can't technically give someone $1 million. If you line with the Democrats' philosophy or the Republicans' philosophy, their PAC will feed you the money indirectly, which you still get the money. So,
and do you think they follow the law all the time? No, they clearly don't, because every single year there's a huge story that breaks the borders. It goes over the borders onto my national news about somebody breaking the law in the United States government. Somebody investigated for corruption. They never follow the rules anyway.
I think. I think at least just one last thing on the U.S. government that if anybody listening to this, I really hope you just internalize it and know this in your soul, regardless of what your opinion is on literally any single issue, anything in the world. Money and politics is the cancer in our society, and we cannot even have a discussion about climate change or healthcare or education or military or anything. We can't even begin to have that conversation until we take the cancer out of our society. That is money and politics. So that's something I'm super passionate about.
Couldn't agree more. And I guess the last thing I'd say about that is an interesting thing to think about is there's often this talk about Russian oligarchies and how Putin selected all these people to own industry, and he's basically put billions in other people's hands. Well, in America, it's kind of like that, except the leader of the free world is below the oligarchs. So in Russia, the leader of their thing gets to, if the Jeff Bezos of Russia goes out of line, then Putin goes, no, you're out of here. I'm going to put somebody new in that spot. And in America, if the president does something, then the corporation leaders go, no, we're going to get somebody new in here. So some food for thought when, if anybody's thinks, oh, this country does it the right way and this one does it the wrong way. It's every country does it the same way. They just find a way to spin it in their own way.
Yeah, we're all on the same side, everybody. I promise you, we all just want a better world, and our brains are being hijacked by mainstream media and corporations, and putting labels on everybody that this person's the problem and that the liberals a problem, the Democrats a problem, the Republicans a problem. We all just want the same thing, and that's to have a better world. And if they keep making us point fingers at each other, we'll never be able to understand that the real problems are the elites and the billionaires and the corporations controlling everything.
So pursue happiness like Aristotle taught us to, and that pursue true happiness, and struggle real struggles, and your life will be a fruitful one, and you will think so much less about politics.
I completely agree. To kind of wrap everything up, my friend, I do have two final questions that I always love to ask our guests, even though we went on a huge philosophical chunk, which I knew we would, and I'm super excited for it.
The answer is no. I don't have your $20. I'll have it next time. Sorry.
For the OnlyFans subscription.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In your words, my friend, what does streaming on Twitch mean to you, Mr. Cranberry Pudding?
It's the first place that I've ever been able to show an unconscious side of me that I think I was unable to show to people because I was too concerned with how I might come off. Twitch to me has been a place that is mine. I can say whatever I want, as childish, as disgusting, and you've been to my streams. There's no rules, pretty much. The only rule is vibe check. Right. if you're not hitting the vibe, then scoot and I'll ban you.
Right.
But it's pretty easy. I want everybody to feel like they're on the couch, and I feel like I'm on the couch with all y'all when I'm playing it, because we're just shooting the shit and playing video games.
Right.
And I think that actually lends itself nicely to fighting games too, because fighting games, which I play a lot on my stream, for anybody that hasn't checked it, it's they're very much those couch games that you went to your buddy's house after school and played Mortal Kombat or played Street Fighter or something, mindlessly. So I to me, it's like recreating that and having those really sort of cool and important social moments where people are relaxed and trying to the day's over.
Right.
Let's play some Street Fighter.
Let's hang out with some friends, relax, have a drink, play some games.
Yeah, that's what Twitch has really been to me. And just being able to do it so comfortably, knowing that it's mine and I get to decide the rules.
It's such a great way to socialize with people too, and to find people from all around the world that you probably would have never met regardless, and just build relationships with them that hopefully will last years to come.
Absolutely.
Final one for you, my friend. Where can all of our viewers and listeners connect with you online?
Well, the obvious place where you really want to look is probably twitch.tv/CranberryPudding. And on through there, you can find all my links to all my social media stuff. I have been posting a little bit more on Twitter lately. I can't guarantee that that's going to be a thing going forward, but I do have an Instagram with nothing on it, and I do have a YouTube with nothing on it yet. But you know what? You're there. Just click follow anyway. Who knows? One day, the new George Clooney flick will premiere on my channel or something.
And we will be here first to see it.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching and listening to this week's episode of the Zephcast. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really does help the channel out a lot. And if you want to see more of your favorite content creators, streamers, and podcasters in the near future, don't forget to subscribe. It's absolutely free to do so, and we'll be having even more exciting content coming up soon. Thank you all again so much for watching. ZephyrsXP, Cranberry Pudding, and I will catch you all in the next one, my friends. Much love, everybody.